All right, everyone. Today we have another update to the Marilyn Manson case. You know, I really convinced myself that, well, there have been all of these lawsuits. It's going to be going to court eventually. Maybe things will be quiet because there will be time to come up with a formal response. They will be preparing for court. Things will slow down, right? Right? No, that is not what happened at all. It has been as busy as ever. There was a whole new lawsuit that got filed. There have been appearances in the media, and Manson even turned himself in to the LAPD, but maybe not for the reason that you're expecting. So you may remember that when we talked about this before, there was an old arrest warrant that was out against Manson from New Hampshire from a concert that was a few years ago. There were 2 counts of simple assault that he was facing, and he essentially just ignored it. He did not do anything about it that we are publicly aware of, obviously. And so because of all of the publicity that Manson has had because of his other ongoing legal issues, shall we say, the Guilford Police Department, which was the department that was overseeing this case, they had the idea that, well, because this is something that has been going on for a long time, why don't we just put out a public statement and try to get this wrapped up? Like, Manson, why don't you just come on down? We'll take your statement. Let's just get this all out of our hair, basically, is what they wanted to do. What I find really fascinating is the flavor of responses that have emerged from this very essentially kind of small thing in the grand scheme of all of the allegations. On the one hand, you have the general media that took this and essentially turned it into Marilyn Manson wanted for arrest as the headline. And, you know, I definitely did that as well, but with the intention of trying to dispel the myth that so many other places were perpetuating by saying that and kind of leading people to believe that that was related to either the ongoing LAPD investigation or from the various lawsuits. The other side of that response were the longtime Manson supporters who looked at this and said, this is a frivolous case. This is someone trying to extort Manson for money. This is using an excuse to go after him legally because, oh, there was just a little bit of spit. That was it. Who cares, right? I should say that the 2 counts of simple assault were for Manson allegedly spitting on a videographer, and I didn't say this before, but it's kind of gross, shooting snot at her, you know, like a 3rd grader would do to someone they don't like on the playground. So that is the general impression, is it's just a silly lawsuit. This is just, you know, completely ludicrous. Well, Manson's legal team made a similar statement when they talked to People magazine about this ongoing New Hampshire situation. Manson's attorney, Howard King, said the misdemeanor claim, which carries a jail sentence of up to 1 year and a $2,000 fine, according to the police department, was pursued after the videographer asked for $35,000 for the effects on the camera equipment. It is no secret to anyone who has attended a Marilyn Manson concert that he likes to be provocative on stage, especially in front of a camera, King said in a statement to People. This misdemeanor claim was pursued after we received a demand from a venue videographer for more than $35,000 after a small amount of spit came into contact with their arm. After we asked for evidence of any alleged damages, we never received a reply. He added, "This whole claim is ludicrous, but we remain committed to cooperating with authorities as we have done throughout." Although, I will say, I don't think you can call it cooperating with authorities throughout if you dodge responding to a warrant for arrest for years until there is enough public pressure to make you respond. But what is more important here is that the claim that Manson's people are making, that there was this attempt at a $35,000 extortion, is contested by the police actually involved here. They have said that it is emphatically false that the person that is filing for charges against Manson only came to them after this claim for money failed to happen. They apparently went to the police department the day after this happened. And so personally, not knowing the facts in detail or being part of the case, I'm not sure how both of those things could be true at once. Like, what happened here? Did they have the incident happen and then they went home late at night after a concert, wrote up an extortion letter, sent it at 6 a.m. to Manson's lawyers, and then when they didn't respond in 2 hours, they went to the police station? That doesn't really seem to make sense. And so if this did happen, I would wonder, if there was this extortion that happened, why wouldn't Manson want to go to police as soon as possible to make sure they were aware that this was frivolous, so it could all just be done with and he could be a free man, not with at least that arrest warrant over his head. And also, this is way more than just a he said, she said case. There were 3 witnesses that saw what allegedly happened, that Marilyn Manson spit at and shot snot at a camera woman. Quote, "He was spitting everywhere. And one time it got on her camera, so she wiped it off and looked semi-irritated," one attendee told People. "I think her final straw is he got on the floor, got within 2 to 3 feet of her, and hacked a giant snot rocket at her, not the camera. She was pissed off and disgusted, so she stormed off and he just laughed." A second attendee concurred, stating that he, quote, "bent down to shoot his snot all over this woman. I can remember him just laughing about what he did. He spit on her a couple of times and then leaned real close to the camera and blew a huge snot rocket on her. After he did that, she almost threw her camera right on the ground," a third man, who works as a security guard at the venue, according to his Facebook, told People. So for me, this goes way beyond just Manson being bombastic on stage and trying to be gross to people to get away with it, essentially. And what ultimately ended up happening here is on July 2nd, Manson did actually turn himself in. The 52-year-old was processed and released under conditions that he must now appear at all court proceedings as ordered and must have no contact with the alleged victim. And let's hope he actually follows through on that this time. Now, this spit incident was not the only thing that happened in the world of Marilyn Manson news. There was another big update that came out. There was a new lawsuit that was filed, this time by Ashley Morgan Smithline, previously known to us as Ashley Lindsay Morgan. Now, Ashley has made some other appearances before. She has talked to People magazine, and now there is actually a lawsuit that she filed. She also went on, I believe it was ABC on The View, to answer some questions about the lawsuit. So before we get into that, let us dig into what this lawsuit actually alleged happened. Now, first of all, they are seeking damages for numerous claims, including sexual assault, sexual battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, unlawful imprisonment, violation of the Bain Act, and or violation of the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act. And as you can tell from those words alone, this is where things get pretty serious. So please make heed of the content warning that I gave before, because this does not get any prettier from here on out. Ashley alleges that the relationship began in the summer of 2010 when he contacted her over Facebook. They would talk on there as well as on Skype, and they communicated often throughout the summer. At the time, she was still working as a model in Thailand, and through their communication, she eventually confided in him that she wished to leave the modeling industry and pursue acting. With that in mind, Manson said that he was thinking about offering her a role in an upcoming film project. As they would continue to talk, he would say things like Ashley was the perfect girl for him. And then he would start to ask for pictures, nude pictures, lewd pictures, things like that. And eventually their relationship became so intertwined that at one point, when she was undergoing a medical procedure later on in 2011, he would incessantly call her phone as well as try to contact her family when she did not respond to him. But before that point, in November of 2010, that is when Manson flew her out to work on this film project that we talked about earlier. It was a remake of a film called True Romance. This is very reminiscent of some of the allegations that came from Esme Bianco, where she too was moved from a foreign country in order to work on a film project that never ended up being publicized or finished. At this point, they did have a consensual sexual relationship, but quickly after her arrival, he took it into non-consensual places. Quote, "She awoke from unconsciousness, with her ankles and wrists tied together behind her back, and Mr. Warner sexually penetrating her. Miss Smithline told Mr. Warner to stop and said no multiple times, and Mr. Warner told her to, quote, shut the fuck up and be quiet. Mr. Warner also squeezed Miss Smithline's ribs, causing bruising and pain whenever she breathed that lasted for a week, as well as additional injuries to her vagina. At another time, he, quote, began choking Miss Smithline and forced her onto his bed. Mr. Warner then forcibly penetrated Miss Smithline without her consent. Miss Smithline said no several times and told Mr. Warner to get off of her. In response, he put a pillow over her face, preventing her from breathing. Mr. Warner then grabbed a knife next to the bed and began cutting Miss Smithline's shoulder, inner arm, and stomach. The cuts drew blood and caused Miss Smithline to go into shock. This brings to mind similar allegations that were made against Armie Hammer. Allegedly, he also cut one of his partners non-consensually during sex, carving a small A into their very lower stomach. At a later time, Manson would also brand her with MM, his abbreviation for his stage name. The photos showing the scars from this were also released to People magazine. At the end of the month, they had a struggle where Manson tried to restrain her and she resisted. This resulted in him elbowing her in the nose, leading to a hairline fracture. But because of the fact that she was still modeling in Thailand and she had a shoot to go to, she had to wait until she flew to Thailand to go to a hospital and have the damage to her nose diagnosed and then treated. Over the next few years, lasting until 2013, we see the relationship between Manson and Ashley devolve in a sadly familiar direction. There was the starvation, the social and physical isolation, the forced drug use, the control over sleep, the coldness and darkness of the house, as well as punishment too. Ashley states that the reason the relationship went on for as long as it did was because of a combination of the many threats against her life if she ever did leave, as well as the culmination of her mental duress. Now, some people have taken issue with her claim in the document that she dropped down to 80 pounds while with Manson. And I want to touch on that for a second because there was one video or a still from that video that people have been sharing around where they say, look, this was before she met Manson. She is already so skinny. She didn't lose weight because of Manson. She lost weight because she was an anorexic model. And I don't think people like fully understand how height and weight proportion works, so I'm going to touch on this really quickly. So Ashley, being in Thailand, was most likely some kind of fashion model. And a fashion model is typically between 5'7" to 5'10". Now, I couldn't find out how tall Ashley is, but we can say maybe 5'8.5", just for, a nice average number. Now, the average weight for a professional fashion model at that approximate height is around 115 pounds. So there is a big difference between 80 and 115. Now, the fashion industry does have a lot of eyes on it in terms of pressuring models to be really, really skinny. And so maybe that number is artificially inflated to make it seem like the models aren't as emaciated as they really are. But that's still a lot of weight difference between 80 and 115 pounds. Now, what could potentially have happened here is, let's say in that video, she is only 100 pounds. That would still be 15 under the supposed average for the height of model and the type of model that she was. And that would still be really skinny because I'm about 100 pounds, but I'm only 5'4". However, if you are 5'7", 8, 9, 10, that is going to look very different on that body frame. So it could be that she was very skinny, even for a fashion model, and she still lost weight when she was with Manson. This one photo, this one video doesn't prove how much she weighed. It didn't prove how much weight she lost or gained or whatever else when she was with Manson. And so I think we should be really careful if we are trying to basically, diagnose people with anorexia, guess how much they weigh, because people are really bad at guessing that, especially when you don't know how tall the person is that you're talking about. And I feel like that is a very weird thing to focus on and be like, haha, checkmate. She lied. I know somehow that couldn't have been the case because look how skinny she is here. She could have been skinny and then gotten skinnier. That is a thing that happens. And this is why I want to talk about this. If you are suffering from an eating disorder before someone abuses you, that does not entitle your alleged abuser to continue to mistreat you, malnourish you, and starve you even farther. That does not give them permission. And to me, that just adds a whole other layer of fucked up to go, you have an ED in this photo. Therefore, I don't believe your abuse allegations. What? If you think that makes you look smart or good, that's not what it's doing. I mean, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go on a ramble about ED here, but it really struck me like how gross it is to look at a photo, diagnose someone with a mental health issue, with an eating disorder, and then using that as a way to say, I don't believe your allegations because of the way that you look. God, so much for fucking mental health awareness. Jesus Christ. Okay, I'm gonna move on. We're gonna get off of this topic. Let's do something else. Not that anything else in this conversation is any better. Besides the instances that were already mentioned, he allegedly threw a knife at her. He choked her, he would bite her, he would force her to wear lingerie around the house and entertain his friends and wear makeup at all times. He would also burn her and whip her With each one of the whippings getting progressively more intense, he would take photos of the aftermath of these whippings and then post them to his Facebook page. And Ashley would see this and she would say, "Hey, can you take these down, please?" And then he would say no because he intended to use the photos as collateral to ruin her career if she ever tried to leave him. And because we cannot get through one of these frickin' stories without a solid dose of anti-Semitism, he would have her bring back Nazi memorabilia from her trips to Thailand. Mr. Warner demanded that Miss Smithline purchase as much Nazi memorabilia that she could find. Mr. Warner would refer to Miss Smithline as, quote, a dirty and a when he was angry with her. And if that wasn't bad enough, this next allegation is something that we hadn't heard of before and is, in my mind, the worst part of this entire lawsuit. Ashley was forced to watch clips of movie scenes depicting gruesome suicides and child pornography. This was so intense, it left Miss Smithline wondering if Mr. Warner wanted her to kill herself. Again, this was intentional conduct, motivated by Mr. Warner's sexual desires. And sadly, this isn't the only allegation like this that we've heard before. In the Jane Doe lawsuit, she says that she was forced to watch a movie called Groupie as a show of her loyalty and her devotion to Manson, which involved a character that was allegedly underaged, and Manson would not tell her if what happened was real or not, and also would not tell her if the alleged minor that was in the video was alive or dead or not. Now, this lawsuit doesn't mention how the relationship ended, but regardless, Ashley says that this left her with panic attacks, nightmares, PTSD, and OCD, all of which she still deals with to this day. Now, the note that the lawsuit does actually end on is the following. At no point before, during, or after their relationship did Miss Smithline tell Mr. Warner that she had a sexual kink or fantasy for this sort of behavior. Mr. Warner never told Miss Smithline that he had those kinks or fantasies either. He just abused her. And she has basically said as much in previous interviews that she's given, that she doesn't even know what BDSM is. And I really want to hit home on this because a lot of the defense around Manson comes from an idea that this is all secret BDSM relationships coming to light, that there must be these consent contracts, that all of the women really knew what was going on the whole time and wanted it, and now we're just acting out of a desire for revenge. I want to say that a lot of what happens in the allegations could be part of a BDSM relationship, right? The wearing a uniform, the lingerie, the makeup, the service, even the burning, the cutting, the consensual non-consent, the ravishment play, the whipping. Those things could be part of a consensual BDSM dynamic. But for that to be the case, there would need to be a couple of other things going on here. So one, Ashley would need to know what was happening. She would have to give her informed consent to what was going on. Two, there would have to be ongoing consent. Not only would consent have to be established, but she would have had to say yes to all of these things in an ongoing and active way. Unless, of course, maybe there was some kind of really secret, high-level TPE authority transfer kind of thing, which is so rare. Even in the world of BDSM, I'm not going to count on that one for this thought process. But if you are in a scenario where your life is being threatened if you leave, that is not an area where you can give freely given consent, where you can give ongoing consent, because in order for consent to work in the way that it should, you have to be able to revoke it. And if you can't safely do that, that overrides the notion of consent. So You know, I want to say just, if this could all be just hidden consensual BDSM and none of these women actually suffered horrific abuse, I would be happy, because that means that dozens of women didn't have their lives ruined at the hands of an abuser. But I really don't think that that is the case based on what we know so far. Now for the final piece of news. So after this lawsuit came out, they went on ABC, Ashley did, to go on the show The View with her legal representation to answer some questions about the lawsuit. If you have not gone to the video on YouTube where this is recorded, I really don't recommend it. The comment section is full of people that are like hashtag I stand with Manson people, who are like, this lady's a liar, she is after his money, and just the general flavor of it is hating women in general and victims of domestic violence in particular for some reason. So avoiding the comments for that, I did notice one thing that people had a problem with that they kept referencing. And that was apparently before they went on the air, there was a photo that was on the lawyer's Instagram page. I believe it is pronounced J. Elwanger. And it's him and her kind of smiling at each other before they go on air. And the way that some people are talking about this is, look, they're smiling, they're happy to be on camera, Duper's delight, they're trying to trick all of us, you can't fool me. And maybe I am not jaded enough, maybe I'm just getting the wool pulled over my eyes. I don't look at that and feel two people being like, hey, we're gonna trick all of them, buddy, yeah, let's do it. To me, what I read from that is it's one person, Ashley, who is smiling in this way that comes across like needing reassurance, because sometimes when you smile, it's not because you're happy you're tricking someone. It can also be like a desire to have someone reassure you, right? And so I see that as Ashley is looking for reassurance and Jay is smiling back like, it's okay, hey, we got this. Not in a we're gonna trick the public kind of a way, but in a like, hey, this is gonna be hard, but like, I'm here and we're gonna get through this. Now, I don't fucking know. I am not either one of these people. I was not in the room for this. This is a freaking Instagram photo. Like, it is going to be a little bit staged for the camera, right? So I don't really know how much we can get from this. I just want to put it out there because, again, the dominant narrative is, oh, this is like proof they're lying. And it's like, does it actually prove that though? Maybe not as clear cut as some people are making it out to be. So, what was actually said in this interview? Because we are here to talk about the interview and not a photo of the interview. And Ashley says more or less what I said in the summary of the lawsuit. However, her lawyer had a very interesting point to make.
Jay, yesterday Ashley filed a lawsuit accusing Marilyn Manson of sexual assault, sexual battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and unlawful imprisonment. There are some people who believe that Ashley and the other women who have sued Manson are doing it for money. It sure doesn't sound like that to me, but what's your reaction?
Well, first of all, thank you, Megan, for asking the question and giving me an opportunity to respond. I think for survivors like Ashley, it's important for the viewers to remember that there are only two avenues where they can seek justice. One is the criminal justice system, and Ashley has done that. She has spoken to the district attorney in Los Angeles. She has spoken to detectives. She has provided evidence, and at this point, it's out of her hands as to what decisions the district attorney in LA decides to do. But when it comes to the civil justice system, that is where a survivor like Ashley can take control of the narrative and to change the timeline into one that they are able to dictate. And so here, Ashley is able to seek justice on her own terms, and that is extremely important for every survivor out there to know that through the civil justice system, regardless of what the criminal justice system does or does not do, through the civil justice system, she can try to get her life back.
And I think it is important to note that he says that she went to the authorities. She provided evidence. She went through the avenues that she was supposed to. And now whether or not this is going to go in any particular direction is out of her hands, right? And Manson has said, this relationship lasted less than a week. And, we're going to see what the evidence actually shows. A lot of people have complained, oh, well, if this is all real, where's the evidence? This isn't YouTuber drama. This isn't tea. This isn't some kind of internet celebrity gossip. This is an actual crime that is being investigated. This is not something where somebody leaks a DM to a YouTube drama channel and everyone sees the evidence. It is not unheard of that they wouldn't release all of or even any of the evidence to the public eye, because it could even be damaging to their case to do so. The people that need to see the evidence are going to see the evidence. That would be the legal teams, the DA, the prosecutor. They are going to know what that is. It may never come out in the public. We may never know. So I would be very reluctant to say, obviously, there is nothing out there. This is totally baseless, because we don't know. However, I would point out that in the lawsuit, there are many areas which could point in a direction of having a basis for something, right? There could be Facebook messages. There could be text messages. There could be Skype recordings. There could be plane tickets, documents from her modeling agency, hospital records, doctor's records, records from a psychiatrist. So there could be a lot out there that we just don't know of. Could there be a hidden cell phone recording of Manson doing the abuse and him saying, ha ha ha, look at me, I'm a big abuser, I am so evil, look at everything I am doing to you, I am such a bad guy? That is most likely not a thing that is out there. However, that is not the only piece of evidence that would point towards his guilt, or at least supports Ashley's version of events. Now, the final thing that I want to talk about is an idea that I have noticed, but really noticed a lot in especially this video. So when she did the interview for People, there was something that was very similar that kind of went on in the comments. But for this interview with The View, it got really bad. There were a lot of people that basically said, look at her, her eyes are so weird. She is clearly lying to us. I will not be deceived, witch. And I am not a professional. I do not read body language, but I do want to say that is a little bit suspect for a few reasons. And on the one hand, there could be a lot of reasons why Ashley appears the way that she does. That she stutters and stumbles not because she is trying to lie, but because talking about your abuse on camera, knowing that it is going to go out to millions of people, is really difficult. There are a million reasons for why she appears the way that she does, right? She could have had plastic surgery that has altered her facial muscles. She could be on medication to help her with the stress of trying to talk about her abuse in public. She could be on medication for her OCD, for her PTSD, for her panic attacks. All of those things could be a factor. But regardless, I think personally it is disgusting to say that because a victim is not acting in the way that you expect a victim to act, that they must be lying, stuttering, pausing, taking breaks, not making eye contact, talking slowly. Those are all things that are totally within the realm of possibility when you are recounting, again, your abuse to thousands of people on camera. And what really gets me is we have this idea of victims need to be this one way. Victims have to, have a little handkerchief and gently blot their eye and, just sadly look into the distance and say, oh, it was so horrible. It was so horrible what he did to me. And if the reaction is anything besides that, they're lying. That is victim blaming culture. There is no one way to be a right trauma survivor. I know it is really tempting to analyze and go, oh, well, that seems like that's wrong or that seems off, because I have done that before myself. I have fallen into that trap. But you are not Ashley. You do not know what is going on in her brain. And what really gets me is people that use their own victim status to put down other victims. The number one comment I saw like this was somebody going, I'm a real trauma survivor, and I say that she's lying and she's making a bad name for us because she wants money. What a whore. There is nothing to me that is more disgusting than somebody using their own trauma history to look at another victim and go, I think you're lying because I'm the real good victim and you're a bad liar. Because you know what? If you had to accuse someone that was a multi-millionaire, that was internationally famous, people would have said the exact same fucking thing to you. And so I am happy for you that you had the good fortune to not have your abuser be a millionaire that is well known around the world. But regardless, that does not entitle you to use your status as a victim to get a special pass to participate in victim blaming mentality and culture, because that is what you are doing. You can excuse it and dress it up however you want. You can call it being skeptical. You can call it being cautious. You can call it being realistic. You can call it whatever you want. At the end of the fucking day, what you're doing by saying, I'm a good victim and these victims are bad victims, you are perpetuating the exact culture that would have done the same thing to you had your abuse been something that had to be announced publicly to the whole fucking world. So, on that heated note, I think I'm done for today talking about this. I feel like I got very personal in this with my own opinions and rebuttals more so than I normally do, but it is very hard to talk about this for as long as I have, with as many videos as I have, getting hundreds and hundreds of comments from people like, these whores are all lying, just spammed everywhere, just constantly. It gets to be a lot, and I want to address that because it is something that I feel very deeply about, and I hope that you guys want to hear my opinion. I would love to hear what you all have to say down in the comment section below. I do have some smaller updates to Armie Hammer and the Cataphor BDSM cult stories. They're really tiny though, so I haven't talked about them yet because I am waiting for more there. Manson has just been so constant. But yeah, that is everything for today. I hope that you all like this. If you want to make sure to not miss any of my other videos going over the Marilyn Manson allegations, please do subscribe because I make videos twice a week, usually about BDSM and relationship education, if you also want to know about that. And finally, if you want to support my channel, the best way you can do that is through Patreon. That is what makes it possible for me to do these videos because the YouTube algorithm does not like it when I do this. No. My channel it's very demonetized. So Patreon is what keeps the ship going. If you do already support me over there, thank you so much. It means the absolute world to me. And until I see you all next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.